Vacha, calves. Hari, stealing. Brahma, Lord Brahma. Kari, making. Aparad, offense. Aparad, offense. Sameti, to pardon. Majena, begged. Prasad, mercy. Translation. After Brahma had offended Krishna by stealing his playmates and calves, he begged the Lord's pardon for his offensive act and prayed for the Lord's mercy. Verse 32. Tamara Nabhipadma Haite Amara Janmodaya Tumi Pitta Mata Ami Tamara Tanaya. Synonyms. Tamara, your. Nabhipadma, lotus of the navel. Haiti, from. Amara, my. Janma Udaya, birth. Tumi, you. Pita, father. Mata, mother. Ami, I. Tamara, your. Tanaya, son. Translation. I took birth from the lotus that grew from your navel. Thus you are both my father and my mother, and I am your son. Text 33. Pita mata balakara na laya aparad. Aparad sama morikara prasada. Synonyms. Pita father, mata mother, balakara of the child, na not, laya take seriously, aparad the offense, sama please pardon, more unto me, karaha please show, prasad mercy. Translation. Parents never take seriously the offenses of their children. I therefore beg your pardon and ask for your benediction. 34. Krishna Kahena, Brahma, Tamara Pita Narayana, Ami Gopa, Tumikaija Amara Nandana. Synonyms. Krishna, Lord Krishna, Kahena says, Brahma, O Lord Brahma, Tomara, your, Pita, father, Narayana, Lord Narayana, Ami, I am, Gopa, cowherd boy, to me, you, Kaiche, how, Amara, my, Nandana, son. Translation. Sri Krishna said, O Brahma, your father is Narayana. I'm but a cowherd boy. How can you be my son? Text 35. Brahma Balena, Tumi ki nab how Narayana, Tumi Narayana, Shuna Tahara Karana. Synonyms. Brahma, Lord Brahma, Balena says, Tumi, you, Kina how are not, Narayana, Lord Narayana, Tumi, you, Narayana, Lord Narayana, Shuna, please hear, Tahara of that, Karana, reason. Translation. Brahma replied, Are you not Narayana? You are certainly Narayana. Please listen as I state the proofs. Text 36. Prakriti Shistai Yatta Jiva Rupa Tahara Ye Atma Tumi Mula Swarup. Synonyms. Prakrita, material, aprakrita, and spiritual, Shrishti, in the creations, Yata, as many as there are, Jiva Rupa, the living beings, Tahara, of them, Ye, who, Atma, the supersoul, Tumi, you, Mulaswarup, ultimate source. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. All the living beings within the material and spiritual worlds are ultimately born of you, for you are the supersoul of them all. Purports. The cosmic manifestation is generated by the interaction of the three modes of material nature. The transcendental world has no such material modes, although it is nevertheless full of spiritual variegatedness. In that spiritual world, there are also innumerable living entities, who are eternally liberated souls engaged in transcendental loving service to Lord Krishna. The conditioned souls who remain within the material cosmic creation are subjected to the threefold miseries and pangs of material nature. They exist in different species of life because they are eternally averse to transcendental loving devotion to the Supreme Lord. Sankarsana is the original source of all living entities because they are all expansions of his marginal potency. Some of them are conditioned by material nature, whereas others are under the protection of the spiritual nature. The material nature is a conditional manifestation of spiritual nature, just as smoke is a conditional stage of fire. Smoke is dependent on fire, but in a blazing fire, there is no place for smoke. Smoke disturbs, but fire serves. The serving spirit of the residents of the transcendental world is displayed in the 5 varieties of relationships with the Supreme Lord, who is the central enjoyer. In the material world, everyone is a self-centered enjoyer of mundane happiness and distress. One considers him the Lord of everything and tries to enjoy the illusory energy, but he is not successful because he is not independent. He is but a minute particle of the energy of Lord Sankarsana. All living beings exist under the control of the Supreme Lord, who is therefore called Narayana. Om Ganataparandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmanitamena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantakam Vandeham Shri Guru Suyuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganath Patam Tam Sanjivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Shahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gauranji Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishna Bhanu Shuta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kapa Prugrascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadesha Tarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you, dear devotees, again for coming. It's a beautiful way to end the day, bookmarking the day in Katha. Spend the morning listening to Srimad Bhagavatam, and we go throughout our day, doing our work and our service, and then we come back again as a sangha to listen to more. I was reading these verses from the Caitanya Charitamrita. I was reflecting on the beautiful weekend that we had in the temple at the Kirtan Love Fest. I was reflecting on the parting words that His Grace Bibi Govinda Maharaj had given. He gave us the instruction, and I paraphrase, to take with us the kirtans that we sang this past weekend, so that it nourishes us through the whole year until we can do it again next year. And I was reflecting on some of the more powerful events of the weekend for me. I recently moved here to central New Jersey from the Adirondacks of New York, where I lived 2 hours from any temple, 2 hours from devotees. I was largely by myself, practicing bhakti yoga to the best of my abilities. I didn't really understand what it meant to truly experience sadhu sangha, I think, until this weekend. Of course, I've been to Rath Yatra, I've been to other festivals, But this weekend, I felt like I was plugged into an outlet that was doling out bhakti electricity. Some of it was because I had the wonderful association of my god siblings. I feel like I'm under their protection whenever I'm just walking next to them, and they inspire me, empower me so much. I also met some dear devotees from Lebanon. Tulsi Mataji, I had her association before in online sanghas. It's always been so inspiring. Their daughter, Karuna, she's 11 or 12 now. She led kirtan on Sunday in front of our Lord's. So brave to get up there and chant. Her father was sitting behind her chanting, just glowing. And I lost it. Tears flowing from my eyes. Not so much from the kirtan, but because I was thinking, these devotees are in an Arabic country. They're the only devotees, and they're preaching. They've opened a center. They're preaching Krishna consciousness in what is a bhakti desert. I lived in a bhakti desert in the mountains. What did I do for preaching? Not much. What am I doing for preaching now? Not much. But I'm inspired to do more because I had the Sangha, the Sadhu Sangha was so powerful. I had the good fortune of taking prasad with them, with Tulsi Mataji and her wonderful husband, Premananda Prabhu. And they offered me such kind words of inspiration, encouragement in preaching and in distributing Prabhupada's books. Because truth be told, I'm fearful of doing these things. This is not within my nature to go out and to preach and to give books. But it's what I want to do. It's what I want to do to please Srila Prabhupada, to please my spiritual master. And I'm not sure I would be able to do these things if it wasn't for getting those jolts of bhakti from sadhus. There was another very powerful part of the weekend that's inspiring me tonight, and that is a number of times the kirtan was so ecstatic that I would look across the temple hall past the kirtan party and I saw a wall, literally a wall of Matajis, Vaishnavis dancing for the pleasure of the Lords. And I again lost it, tears flowing from my eyes, because I can only imagine what it was like to witness the gopis dancing in the forest of Vrindavan, or to witness Radha dancing for Krishna. I didn't want to leave the kirtan because I didn't want to leave those visions. Close your eyes and listen to the kirtan. And to just imagine you're in the spiritual world. But you are in the spiritual world when you're in the temple and you're chanting and dancing for the Lords. So when I was reading these pastimes where Lord Brahma was entering the forest of Vrindavan to apologize to Lord Krishna for stealing the cowherd boys and the calves, somehow I was mentally transported to that place. I could visualize Lord Brahma arriving on his swan carrier to confront Krishna and to apologize, to offer his dandavats to Krishna. I've never been able to do that before. I've read the Bhagavatam, I've read the Caitanya Charitamrita, and of course I get into it and I enjoy the nectar, but for some reason I was able to like enter into my mind, into the forest of Vrindavan and see these things. And then I remembered early in my bhakti journey, again, I lived in the forest, far from devotees. Krishna's mercy came through Facebook. I found out that there was a Bhagavad Gita sangha that was starting, and I had an interest in meditation, had zero interest in God. I was a vehement atheist, but I wanted to know more about meditation, so I started reading the Bhagavad Gita. And it just so happens that the facilitator of that sangha had gone to India with this devotee by the name of Raghunath Prabhu, who had this wonderful podcast called Wisdom of the Sages. So him and his host, Kastuba Das, Raghunath Das and Kastuba Das, were instrumental in bringing me to bhakti. And they had this podcast that every day at 5 a.m. they would get up and read Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'd I'd go onto Zoom every morning at 5 a.m. and listen to Srimad Bhagavatam. And that coupled with reading and hearing the Bhagavad Gita, and then sometime later chanting Hare Krishna changed my life. I went from being an atheist to being a theist. And I've since dedicated the rest of my life to serving Guru Gauranga, the devotees, and my family. But not only did Raghunath Prabhu and Kastuba Prabhu have the morning program with the Srimad Bhagavatam, but every so often, Raghunath Prabhu would have a program he called Sweet Baby Krishna, where at night he would read Krishna book or other esoteric sweet Leelas of Krishna, so that the last thing that we heard in our day was Krishna Lila. You start your day by listening to Srimad Bhagavatam, and you end your day listening to Krishna Lila. Another inspiration that I had from Kastuba Prabhu was one year during Kartik, he had made a personal vow to read a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita every day out loud. And so he challenged his listeners. And so on that Zoom call, there's, daily roughly 100 people would log into Zoom at 5 a.m. 10,000 people would listen to the podcast every day on the various platforms. So Kastuba and Raghunath Prabhus are amongst the world's, best preachers. Even my Gurudev says that, like, they are so empowered in getting the word of Krishna consciousness out. So Kastuba Prabhu had challenged all of his listeners to also read a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita every day out loud for the month of Kartik. But not just read it out loud, monotone. Read it for the pleasure of Krishna. And that means reading it with love, with devotion, with affection, with inflection. Picture reading as if you were on a radio program. And so I did. And it's a beautiful way to read. And so one of the services that I have now is facilitating book groups, reading groups. And it's so beautiful to be able to read to other Vaishnavas and to be read to. It's a much different experience for me than it is just reading, by myself, sitting in my chair, which I do every day anyways. So what I'd like to do tonight is I want to read some of those pastimes from the Krishna book. I'm going to kind of skip around a little bit because most of what I want to read is in chapter 13, but in chapter 14, that's where Lord Brahma has already arrived, and he's offering his prayers. But at the very beginning, he gives a very beautiful description of Krishna. So what I would like everyone to do is maybe sit up a little straighter in your chair so that you can concentrate, and then close your eyes and just absorb yourself in the readings. Don't think about any other worries that you have. Just try to place yourself in the forest of Vrindavan. Picture Lord Brahma landing in his swan carrier to speak with this little cute blue cowherd boy. Enter into that place and just enjoy. If you happen to be driving, please don't close your eyes. But if you're not driving, close your eyes and just listen. So I'm not gonna share my screen because I don't want you to read along. I really do want you just to try to use your imagination and bring yourself into the forest of Vrindavan. Try to imagine all the sights and the smells and the sounds all around, because it is such a beautiful way to read and to listen. So I'm going to jump from here and there just a little bit. So this is the end of chapter 13, where Brahma's arriving to offer his apologies. Immediately, Brahma descended from his great swan carrier and fell down before the Lord, just like a golden stick. The word used among the Vaishnavas for offering respects is dandavat. This word means falling down like a stick. One should offer respect to the superior Vaishnava by falling down straight with his body just like a stick. So Brahma fell down before the Lord just like a stick to offer respect. And because the complexion of Brahma is so golden, he appeared to be like a golden stick lying down before Lord Krishna. All the four helmets of his heads of Lord Brahma touched the lotus feet of Krishna. Brahma, being very joyful, began to shed tears, and he washed the lotus feet of Krishna with his tears. Repeatedly he fell and rose, and he recalled the wonderful activities of the Lord. After repeating obeisances for a long time, Brahma stood up and smeared his hands over his eyes. Seeing the Lord before him, he, trembling, began to offer prayers with great respect, humility, and attention. Brahma said, "My dear Lord, you are the only worshipable Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, I am offering my humble obeisances and prayers just to please you. Your bodily features are the color of clouds filled with water. You are glittering with a silver electric aura emanating from your yellow garments. Let me offer my respectful, repeated obeisances unto the son of Maharaj Nanda, who is standing before me with conch shell earrings and a peacock feather on his head. His face is beautiful. He is wearing a helmet, and he is garlanded by forest flowers, and he stands with a morsel of food in his hand. He is decorated with a cane, a buffalo horn bugle, and a flute. He stands before me with small lotus feet. My dear Lord, people may say that I am the master of all Vedic knowledge, and I am supposed to be the creator of this universe. But it has been proved now that I cannot understand you, who are present before me just like a child. You are playing with your boyfriends and calves, which might imply that you do not even have sufficient education. You are appearing just like a village boy, carrying your food in your hand and searching for your calves. And yet, there is so much difference between your body and mine, I cannot even estimate the potency of your body. And as I've already stated in the Brahma Samhita, your body is not material. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the body of the Lord is all spiritual. There is no difference between the Lord's body and his self. Each limb of his body can perform the actions of all others. The Lord can see with his hands, he can hear with his eyes, he can accept offerings with his legs, and he can create with his mouth. Brahma continued, your appearance as a cowherd boy is for the benefit of the devotees, and although I have committed an offense at your lotus feet by stealing away your boys and calves, I can understand that you have bestowed your mercy upon me. This shows your transcendental quality of being very affectionate towards your devotees. But in spite of your great affection for me, I cannot estimate the potency of your bodily activities. It is to be understood that when I, Lord Brahma, the Supreme Personality of this universe, cannot estimate the childlike body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then what to speak of others? And if I cannot estimate the spiritual potency of your childlike body, then what can I understand about your transcendental pastimes? Therefore, as it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone who can understand a little of the transcendental pastimes, appearance, and disappearance of the Lord becomes immediately eligible to enter into the kingdom of God after quitting the material body. This statement is confirmed in the Vedas, where it is stated simply by understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can overcome the chain of repeated birth and death. I therefore recommend that people should not try to understand you by their speculative knowledge. Back to chapter 13, the stealing of the boys and calves by Brahma. Sukadeva Goswami was very much encouraged when Maharaj Parikshit asked him why the cowherd boys did not discuss the death of Aghasura until after 1 year had passed. He explained thus, my dear king, you are making the subject matter of transcendental pastimes, Krishna, fresher by your inquisitiveness, isn't it? It is said that it is the nature of a devotee to constantly apply his mind, energy, words, ears, etc., in hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness. And for one who is wrapped in hearing and chanting about Krishna, the subject matter never becomes hackneyed or old. That is the significance of transcendental subject matter in contrast to material subject matter. Material subject matter becomes stale, and one cannot hear a certain subject for a long time. He wants change. But as far as transcendental subject matter is concerned, it is called Nitya Navayamana. This means that one can go on chanting and hearing about the Lord and never feel tired, but remain fresh and eager to hear more and more. It is the duty of the spiritual master to disclose all confidential subject matter to the inquisitive and sincere disciples. Thus, Sukadeva Goswami began to explain why the killing of Aghasura was not discussed until 1 year had passed. Sukadeva Goswami told the king, "Now hear of the secret with attention. After saving his friends from the mouth of Aghasura and killing the demon, Lord Krishna brought his friends to the bank of the Yamuna and addressed them as follows." Picture this: Krishna and his cowherd boyfriends on the banks of the Yamuna. And Krishna is addressing his friends. "My dear friends, just see how this spot is very nice for taking lunch and playing on the soft sandy Jamuna bank. You can see how the lotus flowers in the water are beautifully blown and how they distribute their fragrance all around. Chirping of the birds, along with the cooing of the peacocks, surrounded by the whispering of the leaves in the trees, combine and present sound vibrations that echo one another. And this just enriches the beautiful scenery created by the trees here. Let us have our lunch in this spot because it is already late and we are feeling hungry. Let the calves remain near us and let them drink water from the Jamuna. While we engage in our lunch taking, the calves may engage in eating the soft grasses that are in the spot." On hearing this proposal from Krishna, all the boys became very glad and said, "Certainly, let us all sit down here to take our lunch." Then they let loose the calves to eat the soft grass. Sitting down on the ground and keeping Krishna in the center, they began to open their lunch boxes brought from home. Lord Sri Krishna was seated in the center of the circle, and all the boys kept their faces towards him. They ate and constantly enjoyed seeing the Lord face to face. Krishna appeared to be the whirl of a lotus flower, and the boys surrounding him appeared to be its different petals. The boys collected flowers, leaves of flowers, and the bark of trees, and placed their lunch on them as well as in their lunch boxes. And thus they began to eat their lunch, keeping company with Krishna. While taking lunch, each boy began to manifest different kinds of relations with Krishna, and they enjoyed each other's company with joking words. While Lord Krishna was thus enjoying lunch with his friends, his flute was pushed within the belt of his cloth at his right side, and his bugle and cane were pushed in on the left side of his cloth. In his left palm, he was holding a lump of food prepared with yogurt, butter, rice, and pieces of fruit salad, which can be seen through his petal-like finger joints. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who accepts the result of all great sacrifices, was laughing and joking, enjoying his lunch with his friends in Vrindavan, and thus the scene was being observed by the demigods from heaven. As for the boys, they were simply enjoying transcendental bliss in the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At that time, the calves were pasturing nearby, entering into the deep forest, allured by new grasses, and gradually went out of sight. When the boys saw that the calves were not nearby, they became afraid for their safety, and they immediately cried out, "Krishna!" Krishna is a killer of fear personified. Everyone is afraid of fear personified, but fear personified is afraid of Krishna. By crying out the word Krishna, the boys at once transcended the fearful situation. Out of his great affection, Krishna did not want his friends to give up their pleasing lunch engagement and go searching for the calves. He therefore said, "My dear friends, you need not interrupt your lunch. Go on, enjoy them. I'm going to go personally to find the calves." Thus Lord Krishna, still carrying that lump of yogurt and rice preparation in his left hand, immediately started to search for the calves in the caves and bushes. He searched in the mountain holes and in the forests, but nowhere could he find them. At that time, when Aghasura was killed and the demigods were looking on the incident with great surprise, Brahma, who was born at the lotus flower growing out of the navel of Vishnu, also came to see. He was surprised how a little boy like Krishna could act so wonderfully. Although he was informed that the little cowherd boy was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he wanted to see more of the Lord's glorious pastimes, and thus he stole all the calves and cowherd boys and took them to a different place. Lord Krishna, therefore, in spite of searching for the calves, could not find them, and he even lost his boyfriends on the bank of the Yamuna, where they had been taking their lunch. In the form of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna was very little in comparison to Brahma. But because he is the supreme personality of Godhead, he can immediately understand that all the calves and the boys had been stolen by Brahma. Krishna thought, Brahma has taken away all the boys and the calves. How can I alone return to Vrindavan? The mothers will be aggrieved. Therefore, in order to satisfy the mothers of his friends, as well as to convince Brahma of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead, he immediately expanded himself as a cowherd boys and calves. In the Vedas, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has already expanded himself into so many living entities by his energy. Therefore, it is not very difficult for him to expand himself again into so many boys and calves. He expanded himself to become exactly like the boys, who are of all different features and facial and bodily constructions, and who are different in their clothing and ornaments and in their behavior and personal activities. In other words, although each boy, being an individual soul, had entirely different tastes, activities, and behavior, Krishna exactly expanded himself into all the different positions of the individual boys. He also became the calves, who were also of different sizes, colors, activities, etc. This was possible because everything is an expansion of Krishna's energy. In the Vishnu Purana, it is said, Parasya Brahmana Shakti. Whatever we actually see in this cosmic manifestation, be it matter or the activities of the living entities, it is simply an expansion of the energies of the Lord, as heat and light are the different expansions of fire. Thus expanding himself as the boys and calves in their individual capacities, and surrounded by such expanses of himself, Krishna entered the village of Vrindavan. The residents had no knowledge of what had happened. After entering the village of Vrindavan, all the calves entered their respective cowsheds, and the boys went to their respective mothers and homes. The mothers of the boys heard the vibration of their flutes before their entrance, and to receive them they came out of their homes and embraced them. And out of material affection, milk was flowing from their breasts, and they allowed the boys to drink it. However, their offering was not exactly to their boys, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had expanded himself into such boys. This was a chance for all the mothers of Vrindavan to feed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with their own milk. Therefore, not only did Lord Krishna give Yashoda the chance to feed him, but this time he gave the chance to all of the other elder gopis. All the boys dealt with their mothers as usual, and the mothers also, on the approach of evening, bathed their respective children, decorated them with tilak and ornaments, and gave them the necessary food after the day's labor. The cows also, who had been away in the pasturing ground, returned in the evening and called their respective calves. The calves immediately came to the mothers, and the mothers began to lick the bodies of the calves. These relations of the cows and the gopis with their calves and boys remained unchanged, although actually the original calves and boys were not there. Actually, the cows' affection for their calves and the elder gopis' affection for their boys causelessly increased. Their affection increased naturally, even though the calves and the boys were not their offspring. Although the calves and the elder gopis of Vrindavan had greater affection for Krishna than for their own offspring, after this incident, their affection for their offspring increased unlimitedly, exactly as it did for Krishna. For 1 year, continuously, Krishna expanded himself as the calves and the cowherd boys and was present in the pasturing ground. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's expansion is situated in everyone's heart as the Supersoul. But in this case, instead of expanding himself as a Supersoul, he expended himself as a portion of calves and cowherd boys for 1 continuous year. One day, a few days before a year had passed, Krishna and Balaram were maintaining the calves in the forest when they saw some cows grazing on the top of Govardhan Hill. The cows could see down into the valley where the calves were being taken care of by the boys. Suddenly, on sighting the cows began to run towards them. They leaped downhill with joined front and rear legs. The cows were so melted with affection for the calves that they did not care about the rough path from the top of Govardhan Hill down to the pasturing ground. They approached the calves with their milk bags full of milk, and they raised their tails upwards. When they were coming down the hill, their milk bags were pouring milk on the ground out of intense maternal affection for the calves, although they were not their own calves. These cows had their own calves, and the calves that were grazing beneath Govardhan Hill were larger. They were not expected to drink milk directly from the milk bag, but were satisfied with the grass. Yet all the cows came immediately and began to lick their bodies, and the calves also began to suck milk from the milk bags. There appeared to be a great bond of affection between the cows and the calves. When the cows were running down from the top of Govardhan Hill, the men who were taking care of them tried to stop them. Older cows are taken care of by the men, and the calves are taken care of by the boys. And as far as possible, the calves are kept separate from the cows so that the calves do not drink all the available milk. Therefore, the men who were taking care of the cows on top of Govardhan Hill tried to stop them, but they failed. Baffled by their failure, they were feeling ashamed and angry. They were very unhappy, and when they came down and saw their children take care of the calves, they all of a sudden became very affectionate towards the children. It was very astonishing. Although the men came down disappointed, baffled, and angry, as soon as they saw their own children, their hearts melted with great affection. At once, their anger, dissatisfaction, and unhappiness disappeared. They began to show paternal love for the children, and with great affection they lifted them in their arms and embraced them. They began to smell their children's heads and enjoy their company with great happiness. After embracing their children, the men took the cows back to the top of Govardhan Hill. Along the way, they began to think of their children, and affectionate tears fell from their eyes. When Balaram saw this extraordinary exchange of affection between the cows and the calves, and between the fathers and their children, when neither the calves nor the children needed so much care, he began to wonder why this extraordinary thing had happened. He was astonished to see all the residents of Vrindavan so affectionate to their own children, exactly as they had been to Krishna. Similarly, the cows had grown affectionate to their calves, as much as to Krishna. Balaram therefore concluded that this extraordinary show of affection was something mystical, either performed by the demigods or by some powerful man. Otherwise, how could this wonderful change take place? He concluded that this mystical change must have been caused by Krishna, whom Balaram considered his worshipable personality of Godhead. He thought, it was arranged by Krishna, and even I could not check its mystic power. Thus Balaram understood that all these boys and calves were only expansions of Krishna. Balaram inquired from Krishna about the actual situation. He said, my dear Krishna, in the beginning I thought that all these calves and cowherd boys were either great sages and saintly persons or demigods, but at present it appears that they are actually your expansions. They are all you. You yourself are playing as the calves and boys. What is the mystery of this situation? Where have those other calves and boys gone? And why are you expanding yourself as the calves and boys? Will you kindly tell me what is the cause? At the request of Balaram, Krishna briefly explained the whole situation, how the calves and boys had been stolen by Brahma, and how Krishna was concealing the incident by expanding himself, so many people would not know that the original calves and boys were missing. While Krishna and Balaram were talking, Brahma returned after a moment's interval, according to the duration of his life. We have information of Lord Brahma's duration of life from the Bhagavad Gita, 1,000 times the duration of the 4 ages, or 1,000 times 4,320,000 years, constitute Brahma's 12 hours. Similarly, 1 moment of Brahma's time is equal to 1 year of our solar calculation. After 1 moment of Brahma's calculation, Brahma came back to see the fun caused by his stealing of the boys and calves. But he was also afraid that he was playing with fire. Krishna was his master, and he had played mischief for fun by taking away his calves and boys. He was really anxious, so he did not stay away very long. He came back after a moment, by his calculation. He saw that all the boys and calves were playing with Krishna in the same way as when he had come upon them, although he was confident that he had taken them and made them lie down to sleep under the spell of his mystic power. Brahma began to think, all the boys and calves were taken away by me, and I know they're still sleeping. How is it that similar batch of boys and calves is playing with Krishna? Is it that they are not influenced by my mystic power? Have they been playing continually for 1 year with Krishna? Brahma tried to understand who they were and how they were uninfluenced by his mystic power, but he could not ascertain it. In other words, he himself came under the spell of his own mystic power. The influence of his mystic power appeared like snow in darkness, or a glowworm in the daytime. During the night's darkness, the glowworm can show some glittering power. and the snow piled up on the top of a hill or on the ground can shine during the daytime, but at night the snow has no silver glitter, nor does the glowworm have any illuminating power during the daytime. Similarly, when the small mystic power exhibited by Brahma was before the mystic power of Krishna, it was just like snow at night or a glowworm during the day. When a man of small mystic power wanted to show potency of the presence of greater mystic power, he diminishes his own influence. He does not increase it. Even such a great personality as Brahma, when he wanted to show his mystic power before Krishna, became ludicrous. Brahma was thus confused about his own mystic power. In order to convince Brahma that all those calves and boys were not the original ones, the calves and boys who were playing with Krishna transformed into Vishnu forms. Imagine. Actually, the original ones were sleeping under the spell of Brahma's mystic power, but the present ones seen by Brahma were all immediate expansions of Krishna or Vishnu. Vishnu is the expansion of Krishna, so the Vishnu forms appeared before Brahma. All the Vishnu forms are a bluish color, and they were dressed in yellow garments. All of them had 4 hands decorated with club, disc, lotus flower, and conch shell. On their heads were glittery golden helmets inlaid with jewels. They were bedecked with pearls and earrings and garlanded with beautiful flowers. On their chests were the mark of Srivatsa. Their arms were decorated with armlets and other jewelry, and their necks were just like conch shells. Their legs were decorated with bells, their waists with golden belts, and their fingers with jeweled rings. Brahma also saw that upon the whole body of each Lord Vishnu, from the lotus feet up to the top of the head, fresh tulsi leaves and buds had been thrown. Another significant feature of the Vishnu forms was that all of them were looking transcendently beautiful. Their smiling resembled the moonshine, and their glancing resembled the early rising of the sun. Just by their glancing, they showed themselves to be the creators and maintainers of the modes of ignorance and passion. Vishnu represents the mode of goodness, Brahma the mode of passion, and Lord Shiva the mode of ignorance. Therefore, as the maintainer of everything in the cosmic manifestation, Vishnu is also the creator and the maintainer of Brahma and Lord Shiva. After this manifestation of Lord Vishnu, Brahma saw that many other Brahmas and Shivas and demigods and even insignificant living entities, down to the ants and very small straws, all moving and non-moving living entities, were dancing, surrounding Lord Vishnu. Their dancing was accompanied by various kinds of music, and all of them were worshiping Lord Vishnu. Brahma realized that all these Vishnu forms were complete in mystic power, from the anima perfection of becoming small like an atom up to becoming infinite like the cosmic manifestation. All the mystic powers of Brahma, Shiva, all the demigods, and the 24 elements of cosmic manifestation were fully represented in each person of Vishnu. By the influence of Lord Vishnu, all subordinate mystic powers were engaged in his worship. He was being worshipped by time, space, the cosmic manifestation, reformation, desire, activity, and the 3 qualities of material nature. Lord Vishnu, Brahma also realized, is the reservoir of all truth, knowledge, and bliss. He is the combination of the 3 transcendental features, namely eternity, knowledge, and bliss, and he is the object of worship by the followers of the Upanishads. Brahma realized that all the different forms of the boys and the calves transformed into Vishnu forms were not transformed by a mysticism of the type of that a yogi or a demigod can display by specific powers invested in him. The calves and boys transformed into Vishnu Murtis, or Vishnu forms, were not displays of Vishnu Maya, or Vishnu's energy, but were Vishnu himself. The respective qualifications of Vishnu and Vishnu Maya are just like fire and heat. In the heat, there's the qualification of fire, namely warmth, and yet heat is not fire. The manifestation of the Vishnu form of the boys and calves was not like heat, but rather the fire. They were all actually Vishnu. Factually, the qualification of Vishnu is full truth, full knowledge, and full bliss. Another example can be given with the material objects, which are reflected in many, many forms. For example, the sun is reflected in many water pots, but the reflections of the sun in the many pots are not actually the sun. There is no actual heat or light from the suns in the pots, although they appear like the sun. But the forms which Krishna assumed were each and every one full Vishnu. The specific word in this connection is Satya Gyananta Ananda. Satya means truth, jnana, full knowledge, ananta, unlimited, and ananda, full bliss. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are so great that the impersonalistic followers of the Upanishads cannot reach the platform of knowledge to understand them. Especially the transcendental forms of the Lord are beyond the reach of the impersonalists, who can only understand through studying the Upanishads that the absolute truth does not matter, or is not materially restricted. From Krishna's expansion into Vishnu forms, Lord Brahma could understand by his limited potency that everything movable and immovable with the cosmic manifestation is existing due to the expansion of the energy of the Supreme Lord. When Brahma was thus standing baffled in his limited power and consciousness of his limited activities within the 11 senses, he could also realize that he was also a creation of the material energy, just like a puppet. As a puppet has no independent power to dance, but dances according to the direction of the puppet master, so the demigods and living entities are all subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it is stated in the Caitanya Caritamrita, the only master is Krishna, and all others are his servants. The whole world is under the waves of the material spell, and beings are floating like straws in water. So their struggle for existence is continuing. But as soon as one becomes conscious that he is the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this Maya, or illusory struggle for existence, is immediately stopped. Lord Brahma, who has full control over the goddess of learning, and who is considered to be the best authority in Vedic knowledge, was thus perplexed, being unable to understand the extraordinary power manifested by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the mundane world, even a personality like Brahma is unable to understand the mystic power of the Supreme Lord. Not only did Brahma fail to understand, but he was perplexed even to see the display which was being manifested by Krishna before him. Krishna took compassion upon Brahma because of his inability to see how Krishna was displaying the forms of Vishnu and transforming himself into cows and cowherd boys. And thus, while fully manifesting the Vishnu expansions, he suddenly pulled his curtain of Yogamaya over the scene. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not visible due to the curtain spread by Yogamaya. That which covers the reality is Mahamaya, or the external energy, which does not allow a conditioned soul to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead beyond the cosmic manifestation. But the energy which partially manifests the Supreme Personality of Godhead and partially does not allow one to see is called Yogamaya. Brahma is not an ordinary conditioned soul. He is far, far superior to all the other demigods, and yet he could not comprehend the display of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Krishna willingly stopped manifesting any further potency. The conditioned soul not only becomes bewildered, but is completely unable to understand. The curtain of Yogamaya was drawn so that Brahma would not become more and more perplexed. When Brahma was relieved from his perplexity, he appeared to awaken from an almost dead state, and he began to open his eyes with great difficulty. Thus he could see the external cosmic manifestation with common eyes. He saw all around him the super excellent view of Vrindavan, full with trees, which is a source of life for all living entities. He could appreciate the transcendental land of Vrindavan, where all the living entities are transcendental to ordinary nature. In the forest of Vrindavan, even ferocious animals like tigers live peacefully along with the deer and human beings. He can understand that because of the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vrindavan is transcendental to all other places and is free of lust and greed. Brahma thus found Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, playing the part of a small cowherd boy. He saw that little child with a lump of food in his left hand, searching out for his friends and calves, just as he actually had been doing 1 year before after their disappearance. Just imagine what it would have been like to witness all of that, to be in Vrindavan. I've never had the opportunity to be in Vrindavan, at least in this birth, in person, but Srila Prabhupada says that if you can enter into the mood of Vrindavan, it's as good as being in Vrindavan. And so I reflect back to being in the temple hall, chanting the holy names for hours and hours on end, dancing, chanting, singing. It makes me think of what it might be like to be in Vrindavan. So with that, I think I will end. If anyone has any comments or questions or corrections, please unmute and share. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. It was nice meditation. I felt like I'm already gone into samadhi or what for a while. It was nice experience. When we close the eyes and we listen to the story, you feel different yourself.
Indeed. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, Mataji. Hare Krishna. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, I'll turn it over to Sumeshwar Prabhu. Thank you for engaging me in the service. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Murari Prabhu. It was nicely you put together, elaborated the context of the Chaitanya Charitamrita verses where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is quoting from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the greatness and the pastimes, and who is Krishna and his pastimes. And similarly, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is establishing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord himself, Krishna. So nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. So dear devotees, any comments, any other points, any other reflections? Anything would like to add? Any other thoughts? Okay, if not, then let's conclude. It's around 7:57. So thank you so much, Murari Prabhu and other devotees. Let's pray together. Vancha kalpatarupasya kripa sindhu bhevacha patidanam pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo,
Vaishnavebhyo namo
Vaishnavebhyo,
namaha
Namo Namah.
Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Ki Jai.
Nirashi Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Ananda Kodi Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gauri Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hari Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.